You're in the middle of that argument again. You know the feeling. The air is thick, humming with tension. Words no longer matter. They are just sounds. You're both on autopilot, your vocal cords vibrating with the same worn-out grievances. Familiar phrases, like polished darts, hit their targets with precision, striking the most vulnerable spots. Familiar accusations settle on your shoulders like a lead weight. You're walking in this vicious, sticky cycle once more, and each step pulls you deeper into the mire. There is no escape. A dull, chest-compressing feeling of hopelessness builds inside. This isn't just a fight, it's a ritual. How is it that two people who are close, who desperately want to be understood, fall into the same semantic trap over and over again? Why does every conversation on this topic end in predictable pain, as if you are actors in an exhausting play you hate but cannot stop performing? But what if it is a play? What if this entire storm of emotions, this supposedly spontaneous and sincere argument, is actually a game? A pre-directed performance with a script you both know by heart without even realizing it. Psychiatrist Eric Berne, a true surgeon of the human soul, claimed just that. He opened up our social processor and found a bug. He asked a question that shatters our entire perception of communication. Why do our most vivid dialogues and sharpest conflicts turn out to be pre-written programs? Games. Every such game has a hidden purpose, an unconscious psychological payoff, that perverse reward for which the whole thing is staged, to confirm your rightness, to get a dose of pity, or to prove once again that the world is unfair and people are cruel. A payoff that is always paid for with pain. Today, we are going to crack this code. We will give you root access to the operating system of your relationships. By the end of this film, you won't just have a theory. You will have a tool, a key that unlocks the invisible architecture of human connection. You will learn to see these hidden scripts as clearly as a surgeon sees bones on an X-ray. You will understand why you and everyone around you have been repeating the same mistakes for years. Why you enter the same toxic conflicts. Why you choose the same partners with fatal predictability, as if only one program is saved on your hard drive. And most importantly, you will learn how to quit the game, how to press stop, how to cease being a puppet of your own unconscious, and finally start building genuine, not programmed relationships. Relationships based not on hidden benefits, but on true intimacy. To understand how this works, we need to go one level deeper, to the operating system itself. Imagine a simple situation. You're walking down the street. You see a new, shiny gadget in the cold glass of a storefront. Instantly, a capricious, demanding scream explodes inside you. I want it! Right now! This will make me happy. This is your inner child. But immediately another voice cuts in, stern and moralizing like an old teacher's recording. How foolish. Wasting money on nonsense again. You have more important things to do. This is your inner parent, and following them comes a third voice, calm, rational, almost mechanical. All right, let's see. How much does it cost? What's our budget for this? Month? Do I really need this? Or is it a momentary impulse driven by advertising? This is your inner adult. Eric Berne discovered that these three ego states are constantly operating within each of us. Three complete, distinct personalities. The parent. This is your internal hard drive. It stores all the rules, attitudes, and unshakable dogmas of your actual parents. It is a repository of borrowed truths. It speaks in terms of should, must not, and right, without subjecting anything to analysis. The child. This is the bubbling reactor of your emotions, the source of desires, creativity, and intuition. The part of you that has survived from childhood, with all its fears and joys. It feels, it wants, it plays. And finally, the adult. This is your onboard computer, a dispassionate data processor. It is unemotional. It simply analyzes facts, assesses probabilities, and makes decisions based on the objective reality of the here and now. And most importantly, this isn't just a pretty metaphor. It's a real neuropsychological mechanism that works in your head every second. Observing his patients, Berne noticed how people would switch between these states instantly with a click. Everything changes. Their tone of voice, posture, vocabulary. One moment your friend is laughing like a child, and the next he's lecturing you like a stern parent. Brows furrowed. Previously, describing such shifts required complex psychoanalysis and years of therapy. Berne provided a simple and universal language. He handed us a map of our own minds. But the most interesting part begins when these three personalities inside you start communicating. Not just with each other, but with the three personalities in other people, creating a complex, invisible network of interactions. Berne called every such exchange, every act of communication from a glance to a scream, a transaction. It is the basic atom of all communication, the building block from which all our relationships are constructed. From a simple hello to the most complex family dramas that are passed down from generation to generation like a software virus. Let's see this system in action. Here's a simple transaction. Your boss enters the office, his voice as cold as steel. "Why isn't that report on my desk yet? I told you to have it done by morning." And you physically shrink, pulling your head into your shoulders. Your response is a guilty mumble. "I'm sorry I didn't get to it, I had too much other work." What just happened here in the language of code? Your boss attacked from his critical parent ego state. You responded from your adapted child. This is a classic, parallel parent-child transaction. You know it all too well. Every transaction is essentially an exchange, a stimulus, and a response. But why do we engage in them at all? Why do we need this endless ping-pong? Here, Berne introduces a key concept, strokes. A stroke is any unit of recognition of your existence, from a physical touch to a brief nod. A smile, a compliment, even a simple hello. We all experience what Berne called stimulus hunger. We have a vital need to be noticed. Without strokes, the human psyche literally withers. This is not a theory. It is a fact proven by cruel experiments on children in orphanages. And here we arrive at a shocking discovery. The bug that explains the nature of most of your conflicts. Brace yourself. For our psyche, negative attention, criticism, reproach, even a scandal, is more valuable than a complete lack of attention. Yes, you heard that right. People will unconsciously provoke arguments. They will look for trouble. They will do anything to get their dose of negative strokes. Because the hot sting of criticism is still better than the icy silence of indifference. Being scolded is still being seen. The most terrifying thing for a person is to be invisible. But there is a way to get guaranteed and very powerful strokes following a completely predictable script. A method that allows you to experience a whole storm of emotions from hope to anger. And in the end, receive a powerful psychological release. This method is a psychological game. And every such game has its own clear, relentless, 6-part formula. The formula of the trap. Hook plus con. Response. Switch. Cross-up. Payoff. Let's dissect this mechanism, like with a scalpel, on a living, painfully familiar example. Imagine an ordinary apartment. A wife approaches her husband, who is on the couch, lost in the glowing screen of his phone. Her voice is calm. "Honey, the faucet in the bathroom has been dripping for a week. Could you please fix it?" On a social level, this is an adult-to-adult request. But in reality, it's a hook, bait. The husband looks up from the screen. "Of course, dear, I'll do it this weekend." He's taken the bait. This is his con, his desire to be a good, proper husband, his sense of duty. The game has begun. From here, everything moves along a set track. The weekend passes. The faucet continues its monotonous rhythm. Drip, drip, drip. The husband, of course, does nothing. This is the response. And then comes the click, the switch. The wife instantly transforms from a requesting adult into an accusing parent. "I knew it. You don't care." The husband mutates from a helpful rescuer into a justifying child. "I was tired. I didn't have time. You're always nagging." This is the cross-up. A ringing in the ears, a hail of mutual reproaches. A familiar tune, but wait. What's the payoff here? The faucet is still dripping. The payoff is hidden. It's the psychological jackpot for which the whole thing was staged. Her payoff? A dose of bitter but familiar satisfaction. She has once again confirmed her deep-seated script. All men are irresponsible. You can't rely on them. She gets a license for righteous anger. His payoff, he confirms his own script. Women are always nagging and demanding the impossible. He gets the right to sink into the warm swamp of unfair resentment. Both received a powerful charge of negative but very strong strokes. Both proved themselves right. Game over. Until next time. This 6-part formula is universal. It is the skeleton of your every conflict. It operates in family quarrels, office intrigues, and friendly disputes. This is not a coincidence. It is an algorithm. Eric Berne, with the meticulousness of an entomologist, dissected and cataloged over 120 such standard games. Games you play every day. He proved that most of our dramas are frighteningly unoriginal. So let's look into this catalog of human weaknesses. Let's examine the most popular traps we fall into with a persistence worthy of a better cause. One of the most common games in any hierarchy is, "Now I've got you, you son of a bitch." Nigyesob. Imagine a manager who gives an employee a complex and deliberately confusing task. He doesn't help or explain the details. He just steps back and watches with the cold focus of a predator. He isn't hoping for success. He is waiting for a mistake. And when the employee, tangled in contradictory requirements, inevitably fails, the manager feels not disappointment but a grim, chilling triumph. He approaches, and his words sound like the click of a cage lock. "Aha, I knew it. He has caught the son of a bitch." What is the hidden payoff here? The manager's payoff is the justification for his own aggression and the assertion of his power and rightness. He proves to himself that he is surrounded by incompetence, and only he knows how things should be done. And what is the subordinate's payoff? Paradoxically, he gets one too. He sheds responsibility for the failure. "It wasn't my fault, the task was impossible, and the boss is a tyrant." He assumes the psychologically comfortable role of a victim, which also yields dividends in the form of sympathy from colleagues. But there is a game that is even more insidious and destructive. Why does this always happen to me? Wham! The person playing it constantly complains to friends and family about their problems, collecting them like trophies. They ask for advice. But when offered real solutions, they reject them one by one, finding a flaw in each. Yes, but that won't work because... And here, Berne uncovers a terrifying truth. The goal of this game is not to solve the problem at all. Its true purpose is to fail again. To reject all help in order to finally say with bitterness, "See? Nothing helps me," and receive the main payoff, confirmation of their role as a perpetual victim and a dose of sweet, almost narcotic sympathy from others. These games can last for years, poisoning the atmosphere in a family or a team. But Berne went even further. He realized that all these individual games are just tactical moves, separate battles. They are scenes within a single, global, all-encompassing play that we perform our entire lives, from birth until death, often without even knowing it exists. He called this play, this unconscious life plan, a life script. Imagine a child. His world is an unheard but all-pervading whisper of parental injunctions, voices that repeat, like a mantra. Don't stick out. Stay quiet. Be like everyone else. For the child, this is not just advice. It is the law of gravity in his small universe. And so, sitting on the floor, he writes the first directive in his subconscious. A script where the protagonist never truly wins, where the thought of risk makes his blood run cold, where he instinctively avoids responsibility, missing any chance that requires courage. Years pass. The child grows up. He turns down a promotion because he doesn't want to stick out. He chooses a partner who will control him because it feels safer. He repeatedly finds himself in situations where he ends up a loser. And each time he thinks with bitterness, "Here we go again." He doesn't realize that this again isn't cruel fate. It is the flawless performance of the lead role in a play he wrote himself 30 years ago, dictated by someone else's fears. This is a life script, a detailed unconscious life plan created in childhood under the influence of parental commands and prohibitions. It is not a set of habits. It is a full-fledged play with an exposition, a climax, and a predetermined, often tragic ending. This script dictates everything: who you will become, whom you will marry, how you will raise your children, and even how you will die, from a disease caused by chronic stress or in solitude, having pushed everyone away. The games we've discussed are merely tactical maneuvers, individual scenes from this global production. And the main director, who ensures you don't deviate from the text, is your internal script apparatus. The very force that, by activating ancient neural circuits of fear, sabotages change, mocks your dreams, and with a heavy hand, drags you back to your familiar, albeit unhappy role. This is the main antagonist in your inner drama. And now for the most unsettling thought in all of Berne's theory. It sends a chill down your spine. Look at your life, at your choice of profession, at the history of your relationships, repeating like a broken record, at your greatest successes and your most devastating failures. Are you sure that all of this is the result of your free and unique choices? Or is it just well-acted scenes from someone else's play? A play written for you by your parents, with you obediently performing the lead role. This realization is not just a punch to the gut. It's an existential shock. The thought that your entire unique personality, all your supposedly spontaneous decisions, could have been pre-programmed like an algorithm is terrifying. But within this fear, in this deafening silence, lies immense inspiration. Because if it's a script, it has text, in black and white. And if it has text, it can be read. It can be deciphered. You can understand its rules, its internal logic, its hidden destructive goals. And if the script can be read, it can also be rewritten. You can tear out the time-yellowed pages of a drama about defeat and write new ones about freedom and awareness. Eric Berne didn't just diagnose all of humanity. He left us detailed instructions for escaping this puppet theater. He gave us 3 fundamental keys to our own freedom. Let's return to that same argument. Evening. The air is thick again. The wife is preparing her signature attack. Her critical parent is already armed. The husband feels it on a cellular level. His script commands him to immediately fall into the role of the guilty child, to mumble, to apologize. The hook has been cast. But this time, something goes wrong. The husband pauses, just for a second. He looks her in the eyes, and in a calm, steady voice, from a pure adult state, he says, "I see you're upset, and this is really important. Let's think together about how we can fix it." Silence, a ringing silence. The mechanism, lubricated by years of use, grinds to a deafening halt. The game is broken. The switch didn't happen. The payoff of a fight has been canceled. What you just witnessed is the work of these 3 keys in action. The first key, awareness. It is the ability, at the most critical moment, to activate your inner adult and tell yourself, "Stop! A game is starting." It is the skill to see the hook being thrown at you and recognize the role you are being pulled into. The second key, spontaneity. This is the freedom of choice. Instead of an automatic, scripted response, you can react in any way you choose, as an adult or even as a free child. But it will be your conscious choice, not a reflex. And the third key, the ultimate goal of all this, intimacy. This is direct, honest communication, without masks, without hidden motives. It is that fragile and precious space that emerges when the games end and 2 people finally just see each other. It sounds simple, doesn't it? See the game, exit the game. But why is it so unbearably difficult? Because exiting a game means giving up a guaranteed payoff. It might be a dose of sweet self-pity or a feeling of righteous anger, but it's a familiar, understandable emotion. Your script apparatus hates uncertainty. At any attempt to escape, it sounds an internal alarm of anxiety. It whispers, "Why change anything?" Yes, it's painful here, but at least it's familiar. This is our warm, albeit toxic, comfort zone. To refuse to play is to step into the unknown, to choose genuine feelings over a substitute, and that requires real courage. So, we have seen the actors who live inside us. We have understood their thirst for strokes. We have studied the script by which they play their roles and found a way to walk off the stage in the middle of a scene. The time has come to meet the man who first saw this orderly and cruel system behind the chaos of human relationships. The man who mapped the dark territories of our psyche and hacked this code as old as time itself. Eric Berne was not an armchair academic. He did not float in clouds of abstract theories. He was a practicing psychiatrist who saw human pain in its most concentrated form every day. He was trained in the classical school of psychoanalysis, but his active, almost engineering-like nature was tired of the endless excavations of childhood traumas. This archaeology of the soul lasted for years and did not always yield results. He saw patients who became virtuoso experts on their own pasts. They could perfectly analyze their traumas but continued to step on the same rakes in the present. Berne wasn't looking for a theory. He was looking for a tool, something sharp, precise, something you could give a person right here and now so they could change their life tomorrow. It was this pragmatic approach that led him to his revolutionary idea. He made a paradigm shift in psychotherapy. He shifted the focus from one question to another. Instead of asking, "Why is this person suffering?" Berne began to ask, "What hidden benefit does he get from his suffering?" This was a tectonic shift that shook the very foundations of classical psychoanalysis. He stopped viewing the patient as a passive victim of the past. Instead, he saw an active, though unconscious, player. A player striving to get his psychological payoff to confirm the rightness of his script. This approach turned therapy on its head. It gave people not sympathy, but responsibility, and consequently, power over their own destiny. And then something incredible happened. In 1964, Berne published the book Games People Play. He intended it as a highly specialized textbook for psychotherapists. A complex, scholarly work. But the book, as if a living creature, broke out of sterile offices. It exploded in society, becoming a cultural phenomenon of the 60s. It sold over 5 million copies. Why? Because Berne, by cataloging over 120 typical games, gave millions of ordinary people a simple, sharp, and understandable language to describe their own lives. People read about the alcoholic game, or why does this always happen to me, and experienced a shock of recognition that took their breath away. In those lines, they saw their neighbors, their bosses, themselves. For the first time, complex psychology became an accessible tool for self-analysis for anyone who could read. Berne gave us more than just another theory. He gave us a mirror, a clear, ruthless, and incredibly useful diagnostic mirror that does not flatter. And now that we have looked into it, now that we have identified our inner actors and read their lines, we can make the most important choice of our lives, to remain a performer or to become the director. So, let's put the whole picture together. Berne's system is elegant, like code. Inside you are 3 actors: parent, adult, and child. They are on the stage of your psyche. Their payment, their existential currency, is strokes, positive or negative, it doesn't matter. They fight for them. Their dialogues are transactions, the building blocks of the code, and the games, with their 6-part formula of a trap, are repeating scripts, separate scenes with a completely predictable ending. And all of this together, this entire production, is your life script. A play written in childhood that, like a Greek tragedy, inexorably drags you toward a predetermined conclusion. Now let's return to that argument, to the very beginning. But now you see it with different eyes. You see the hook being cast. You can physically feel how the neural pathways, trodden for years, are pulling you into the familiar rut, into the role of the offended child or the formidable parent. You are almost ready to blurt out the memorized line. There it is, on the tip of your tongue, but instead you pause. A microsecond pause that changes everything. You activate your adult and take a step toward the person, not the game. You speak not from a role, but from yourself. And in that moment, in that ringing silence where a fight should have been born, you create a rare and precious moment of genuine intimacy. You are no longer playing. You are finally, truly living. It's important to understand the ultimate goal is not to get rid of games completely. In our society, permeated with social rituals, that is practically impossible. The goal is different: to stop being their puppet, jerked around by the strings of childhood traumas. To know the rules of the game so you can have the opportunity to consciously break them. Freedom is not the absence of a script. It is the right to pick up a red editor's pencil and at any moment begin to ruthlessly revise it. Freedom is the final deafening realization. You are the playwright, not just an actor who was handed someone else's script at the door. And now, the main question. It is addressed to you personally. Stop for a second. Listen to the echo of your past conflicts. Analyze your life, your recurring situations. What role has your script most often forced you to play? The role of the victim, constantly seeking sympathy and saying, "Why does this always happen to me?" Or the role of the persecutor, always looking for someone to blame and triumphantly exclaiming, "Now I've got you, you son of a bitch." This is the first, most important step toward awareness. Not for us, for you. Share your anonymous answer in the comments. Just write, victim or persecutor.